Florida's housing map just flipped. One coast is cooling, while the other is courting the world. Start in January. Southwest Florida opens 22-6 with its worst first month standing yet in a national market hotness ranking that scans 1,612 counties. The coldest January on record for the region, not in weather, but in buyer urgency. Sarasota County, which sat at rank 37 in January 2002, slides to 972 in January 2006. Manatee moves from 60 to 1,064. Collier drops from 210 to 1,277. Lee falls from 133 to 1,320. Charlotte descends from 191 to 1456. 5 counties. 5 steep arcs downward since the frenzy of early 2022. The gap between price and pace tells the story. In January 2026, Collier County posts a 7% year-over-year drop in single-family sold prices, yet its median still sits at $860,000. Affordability hasn't caught up to gravity. Nearby, Lee County's median for single-family homes is $400,000. The Northport Sarasota Bradenton Metro posts a median of $485,000. To the east and south, the Miami-Fort Lauderdale West Palm Beach Metro checks in at $670,000. Those are big numbers. And buyers? They're taking time. In 2002, homes in the Naples Area Board of Realtors dataset typically sat on the market 95 days, a 27% rise from 2004. On Marco Island, condos lingered even longer, averaging 116 days. And then came January 2026, setting a statewide record for new listings. Fresh supply poured in. Single-family new listings rose 7% compared to a year prior. Condos and townhouses climbed another 2.7%. The crown for most January new listings belongs to this year. The question that matters is whether those listings will keep sitting. Underneath all of it, migration tells on the market's mood. The same data set that crowned Southwest Florida near the top in January 2020 now points to a 93% plunge in net domestic migration. That shift doesn't move in a straight line, but it shows a current. The easy inflow of buyers that once set the tone has slackened. And yet, on the other side of the peninsula, momentum hums. South Florida's luxury market enters 22-10-6 with forecasts calling for approximately 2.8% price growth this year and 3.5% in 22-7. Not fireworks, stability. The kind investors like. Luxury properties there carry a dual return logic, long-term appreciation paired with rental income potential. Seasonal demand, from snowbirds, corporate relocations, and international visitors, continues to support high-end rents, especially along the water and in amenity-rich towers. International attention is intensifying. In January, China topped the list of all countries searching a major South Florida property portal for homes, with 4 Chinese cities, Lanzhou, Hangzhou, Shanghai, and Qingdao, landing among the top 10 international cities by search volume. The policy backdrop is complicated. Florida Senate Bill 264, known as SB 264, bans Chinese nationals without permanent U.S. residency from buying property or land in Florida. Legal challenges have temporarily frozen enforcement. Even with that cloud, foreign participation in South Florida has been outsized. In 2002-05, the region's foreign buyer share hit 15%, 7 times the estimated 2% U.S. figure and more than 3 times the Florida share at 5%. The mix skews toward the Americas. Colombia accounts for 15% of foreign buyers, Argentina 12%, with Mexico and Brazil tied at 7% each. Step back and the contrast sharpens. In the same January report, Kenosha County, Wisconsin ranks number 1 in hotness with a score of 99.2551. Medina County, Ohio, follows at 98.7585. Monroe County, New York posts 98.6344. Morris County, New Jersey ticks in at 98.5102, matched by Champaign County, Ohio. At the other end, the slowest markets post microscopic scores. St. Mary Parish, Louisiana, bottoms out at rank 1,612 with 0.6828. Eagle County, Colorado, is 1,611 with 1.0863. McCurtain County, Oklahoma, ranks 1,610 at 1.2725. Llano County, Texas, is 1,609 at 2.0484. Maverick County, Texas, lands 1,608 at 2.1415. Southwest Florida's counties now cluster toward that cooler side. In January 2026, Sarasota's hotness score is 42.09. Manatee's is 38.24. Collier's is 28.93. Lee's is 27.03. Charlotte's is 19.18. Hendry County's sits at 8.60, ranked 1,569. The spread from Naples and Marco Island all the way north to Venice and inland to Hendry tells a single story in different shades. A market with inventory, with patience, with buyers waiting for price to meet reality. And still, the luxury of Naples can shock. On February 17th, a Gordon Drive parcel sold for $19.5 million, topping the local list. Zoom out the same day to Kenosha. The most expensive home sold there that month, as of February 17th, closed at $423,390. In Naples alone, 471 properties had sold in the previous 30 days for more than Kenosha's priciest. When buyers balk at sticker shock in Collier County, they're not wrong. The median is $860,000 even after that 7% drop. The high end remains a world apart. What happened? In early 2020, 8 months before Hurricane Ian, the Southwest Florida counties were darlings of the national map. Demand swallowed listings as quickly as they arrived. Then the tide shifted. Signals suggest the reasons stacked: a broader sobering across the country, a 93% plunge in net domestic migration in the tracking data, and a local surge in supply. In 2,205, days on market climbed by double digits. By January 2,200, 6 statewide new listings set a January record, with single-family homes up 7% and condos up 2.7% year over year. If fresh listings keep outpacing consummated deals, the gap between asking and getting tends to widen. On-the-ground behavior in Lee County makes it real. In Cape Coral, overpricing now translates into longer exposure. Buyers are studying comps and waiting. Data shows that properly priced listings there receive offers an average of 3 weeks faster than overpriced comparables in the same neighborhoods. 3 weeks is a lifetime when mortgage locks, relocations, and school calendars are in play. Pricing accuracy has become the difference between a stealthy sale and a stale listing. The same staging repeats across the region. Drive through West Naples or down Collier Boulevard, and you'll find signs that sit, then sit some more. 95 median days on market across Naples in 2000. 116 days for Marco Island condos. Sellers who enter at 2022 price levels watch that number creep toward triple digits. The arithmetic is simple, even if the psychology isn't. When single-family medians are $860,000 in Collier and $400,000 in Lee, the buyer pool that can cross the threshold shrinks relative to the headline demand that once defined the boom. Meanwhile, Miami composes a different song. The city's evolution into a finance and tech hub has trimmed the supposed trade-offs of leaving places like Seattle or Silicon Valley. Brickell has become the shorthand, a skyline of glass and steel, young professionals moving with a purpose, valet lines that never seem to end. Palm Beach remains Palm Beach. Legacy estates, privacy, immaculate hedges. Fort Lauderdale sits in between, a yachting life with slightly more approachable price points and a pace that suits. Across this tri-county core, prime waterfront and 5-star amenity towers are the magnets, especially for buyers willing to commit during pre-construction phases. Market watchers project approximately 2.8% luxury price growth in 2006 and 3.5% in 2007. Small increments, but in their steadiness lies the attraction. Foreign capital helps. In 2002, 15% of South Florida purchases came from international buyers. Colombia led at 15% of that foreign share. Argentina followed at 12%. Mexico and Brazil tied at 7% each. Those connections pull through to how marketing is done, how showings are scheduled, which languages tours are narrated in. They also shape risk. January saw a spike in interest from China, leading all countries by online search traffic, with Lanzhou, Hangzhou, Shanghai, and Qingdao landing among the top 10 international cities visiting the portal. SB 264, on the books, bans Chinese nationals without permanent U.S. residency from buying property or land anywhere in Florida. But with enforcement temporarily frozen by legal challenges, a question hangs in the air. How much of that digital interest might convert to actual transactions if the legal status shifts again? Back to the Gulf side. The county-level numbers map not just to macro forces, but to dinner-table decision-making. In Manatee County, a hotness rank of 1,064 and a score of 38.24 signals a market with more patience than pace. In Sarasota, at 972 and 42.09, the story is similar but less acute. In Charlotte, at 1,456 and 19.18, urgency is rare. In Hendry, a score of 8.60 and rank 1,569 shows a deep chill. These figures don't tell you whether a single house will sell this weekend. They tell you how much competition that house is likely to face and how willing buyers are to sprint. They also frame the core challenge, affordability. Collier's median of $860,000 buys a worldview different from Lee's $400,000. Condos and townhomes follow the same split. In Collier, the median for condos and townhouses is $472,500. In Lee, it's $289,950. The spread forces choices: budget versus beach proximity, new construction versus an older home, a single-family driveway versus a high-rise elevator. And while the Gulf Coast adjusts, international pages are flipping in Miami. 15% of transactions tied to foreign buyers is not a footnote. It's a foundation. With the U.S., figure hovering at around 2% and the Florida statewide share at 5%, the Tri-County corridor is in its own category. That scale of cross-border demand keeps eyes on Brickell floor plans, Palm Beach estates, and Fort Lauderdale waterways even when domestic flows cool elsewhere. Forecasts calling for 2.8% growth in 2026 and 3.5% in 2007 don't dazzle, but they steady the ship. Even in the quiet, numbers line the horizon. Between January 2022 and January 2026, Sarasota tumbles from 37 to 972. Manatee from 60 to 1064. Collier from 210 to 1,277. Lee from 133 to 1320. Charlotte from 191 to 1456. A 4-year slideshow, one frame every January, each slide dimmer than the last. Add Naples' 95 days on market in 22,000, up 27% from the year before, and Marco's 116 for condos, and you begin to see why price to sell isn't just a sign, it's a survival tactic. That's why the Cape Coral detail matters. 3 weeks faster for a properly priced listing compared to an overpriced one. In a city where pool screens catch the morning sun and canals pull the evening breeze, 3 weeks can be the difference between moving before the summer heat or after the school year begins. It's the kind of edge a seller can control when so many other levers, the migration pulse, the pace of new listings, fall outside their reach. Nationally, the leaderboard can feel like a different universe. Kenosha at 99.2551, Medina at 98.7585, Monroe at 98.6344, Morris and Champaign both at 98.5102. These counties, snowflakes on the eyelashes, salted sidewalks underfoot, sit atop a list that measures buyer behavior without caring whether the next beach is on the Gulf or the Atlantic or 1,000 miles away. They also remind Florida sellers that competition for attention is not just neighbor against neighbor. It's county against county, narrative against narrative. On the flip side, the floor is sobering. St. Mary Parish at 0.6828, Eagle County at 1.0863, McCurtain at 1.2725, Llano at 2.0484, Maverick at 2.1415. These aren't Florida markets, but their existence on the bottom of the same chart shows how thin demand can get when the ingredients misalign. What's next depends on which coast you're standing on. In Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, the base case looks like continuity. International interest remains robust, foreign buyers keep contributing around a mid-teen share, and luxury prices grow modestly, about 2.8% in 2026, roughly 3.5% in 2027. Miami's identity as an emerging finance and tech hub helps. Brickell continues to attract younger professionals. Palm Beach continues to draw those seeking exclusivity. Fort Lauderdale keeps playing its yachting card with slightly more approachable price points. New construction with premium amenities maintains a gravitational pull, especially in pre-construction phases, offering staged payments. On the Gulf side, the base case looks like a market working through inventory. January 2020, Six's record for new listings sets the tone. With single-family new listings up 7% and condos up 2.7% year-over-year, choices expand. If they continue to outpace absorbed demand, days on market could remain elevated relative to the 22.4 baseline. Sellers in Collier, Lee, Sarasota, Manatee, and Charlotte may find that calibrated pricing, meeting the today of comps rather than the yesterday of mania, earns offers faster. In Cape Coral, the 3-week edge for properly priced listings is a tangible benchmark. A 7% year-over-year dip in Collier's single-family median in January shows the adjustment has already begun at the edges. But with median price levels like $860,000 in Collier, $400,000 in Lee, and $485,000 in the Northport Sarasota-Bradenton metro, the path toward easier affordability is a slope, not a cliff. 2 watch items can shift these trajectories. First, the legal fate of SB 264. The law bans Chinese nationals without permanent U.S. residency from buying property or land in Florida. Its enforcement is temporarily frozen. In January, China led all countries in online searches for South Florida properties, with 4 Chinese cities ranking among the top 10 international search origins. If enforcement resumes, actual closing activity from this cohort could materially differ from search interest, nudging the composition and velocity of luxury demand. Second, the cadence of new listings. January 2020, Six already owns the crown for most January new listings statewide. Single-family supply up 7%. Condos up 2.7%. If this pace repeats into the spring and summer, homes that aren't priced sharply could stack into triple-digit days on market, pressing hotness ranks in Southwest Florida thinner still. A reversal, either via stronger absorption or fewer new listings, would tighten the screws the other way, but patience would need to be repaid with better match rates between price and pocketbook. Between these poles lies the striking paradox of Florida right now. A Naples parcel trading at $19.5 million on Gordon Drive, while Collier's single-family median falls 7% year-over-year to $860,000. 471 Naples properties closing in 30 days above $420, $3,390. The top Kenosha sale as of February 17th, while Manatee's hotness score sits at just 38.24, and its rank at 1,064. A statewide January record for new listings, alongside forecasts that South Florida luxury will post 2.8% growth this year and 3.5% next. 15% of South Florida closings in 2025 tracing to foreign buyers, 7 times the national share, while domestic migration into the state faces a 93% plunge in the dataset that tracks it. For the homeowner deciding whether to list in Naples or Bonita Springs, the homework starts with comps and ends with courage. 95 days on market in 2025, up 27% from 2024, asks for patience. But patience without pricing is just waiting. Where you place that first number matters. 3 weeks sooner for properly priced properties in Cape Coral may not hold for every submarket, but the principle travels. For the buyer scanning Brickell or Palm Beach, the question is different. 2.8% projected growth this year, and 3.5% next points to a glide rather than a climb. International activity, 15% of deals from abroad last year, with Colombia at 15% of the foreign share, Argentina at 12%, Mexico and Brazil at 7%, adds competition and options. Pre-construction concessions can sweeten the start. Waterfront premiums rarely go on sale. The rental backdrop, fueled by snowbirds, corporate moves, and a stream of global visitors, bolsters the math for those penciling yields as well as dreams. Either side of the state, the story is numbers but also tempo. In Sarasota, a fall from 37 to 972 over 4 Januaries means the game is slower. In Broward, a luxury tower sells not on a Saturday open house, but over quarterly cycles when bonuses post and visas clear. In Charlotte, a hotness score of 19.18 is an empty orchestra pit. You can still hear music, but it's faint. In Palm Beach, exclusivity composes its own soundtrack. And across January 2026, new listings hum 7% louder in single-family and 2.7% louder in condos and townhouses than a year before. Volume is up. The soloists decide how to be heard. So what should you do with a market that's 2 stories at once? If you're selling on the Gulf, think like a buyer who has options. Scan the numbers. $860,000 for Collier single-family medians, $400,000 for Lee, $485,000 for the Northport Sarasota Bradenton Metro, $472,500 for Collier condos, $289,950 for Lee condos, and set your anchor accordingly. If you're buying on the Atlantic, focus on neighborhoods where utility and liquidity meet. Brickell for walkability, Fort Lauderdale for waterfront without the Palm Beach premium, Palm Beach when legacy status is part of the return. Remember the forecast figures, 2.8% and 3.5%, and plan for a marathon, not a sprint. The numbers do not cancel each other, they coexist. Southwest Florida can have a cold January rank and still post $19.5 million closings on Gordon Drive in February. South Florida can welcome a surge of Chinese search interest in January, while the law that governs their ability to buy sits under a temporary freeze. Naples homes can average 95 days on market in 2025, a 27% jump from the year before, while Cape Coral proves that shaving 3 weeks off that timeline is as simple and as difficult as getting the price right on day one. Sarasota can drop from 37 to 972 in a 4-year span and still be Sarasota, with water that looks like a postcard on a Tuesday afternoon. Base case for the rest of 2026 to Floretta's hold. The Gulf Coast works through supply, medians adjust at the edges, and priced to sell means what it says. The Atlantic Coast leans on diversification and global demand, posting measured gains at the top. Risks to watch are clean and close. 1. Whether SB 264's enforcement status changes, reshaping how January's surge in Chinese searches translates, or doesn't, into closings. 2. Whether the January spike in new listings, 7% for single-family, 2.7% for condos and townhouses, repeats through spring and summer, pressing days on market in Collier, Lee, Sarasota, Manatee, and Charlotte toward longer horizons, or easing as absorption catches up. Florida has always asked for choices. This year, it asks for clarity. Know your county rank. Know your days on market. Know your median and your must-haves. Then act like your coast depends on it, because, in a way, it does. If this helped you see the map more clearly, share it with someone deciding where to plant their next flag.